Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. We're going to tackle a very difficult topic and one in which it will be very difficult for me to disguise my disgust and anger about the story that I'm going to tell you today and what's going on. I don't pretend to have all of the answers for what to do about this, but I think that we can all agree at the end of what I say that we have a major problem and we need to do something about it. So here goes. At this time, Washington, D.C., California, Colorado, Oregon, Vermont, and the state of Washington have passed laws allowing physician-assisted suicide. In Montana, a Supreme Court ruling protects doctors who assist with suicide as long as they have some sort of written authorization from the patient. Many state legislatures are currently considering what is commonly called death with dignity laws at this time, and it's expected that some states will pass legislation soon. This is a highly charged issue for many reasons, including religious beliefs, and it's a highly personal one for anybody involved. I have a lot of concern about government inserting itself into personal lives of citizens more and more, particularly in this area, but I also understand that there is so much opportunity for abuse that the issue must be addressed legally, hence the need for legislatures to consider it. But I will share my concerns here. And I've had concerns for a long time, but when I read this article that I'm going to talk to you about, they just really it encapsulates my feelings about this. The commentary today involves a patient named Ed who is a citizen of Canada. The Canadians passed the Medical Assistance in Dying or MAID law in 2016. Ed was treated over a period of several years by a Canadian naturopath. His name is Douglas Lobe, who authored the article published in the Townsend Letter called Made in Canada, My Friend Ed. The article described both his treatment of Ed and Ed's decision to opt for medically assisted suicide. In a letter Ed wrote to Lobe explaining why he had opted to kill himself, Ed described some of his health conditions, and they included symptoms of diabetes such as neuropathy and non-healing sores on his leg, inability to walk without assistance, arthritis, knees with diminished cartilage, prostate enlargement, gallstones, fatty liver, migraine, cluster headaches, rotator cuff damage, eczema, back pain, insomnia, cysts, and generalized chronic pain. He also described the consequences of his psychological issues, which included loneliness and alienation from his family and church. Lobe recalls in his article that over the years Ed had been involved in several fairly serious incidents in which he was recorded as bringing a gun into Tim Hortons, opening a can of bear spray in the air ducts of a casino, and making a citizen's arrest at a grocery store. So we're talking about a psychologically disturbed person. In response to all of this, at Lobe's clinic, Ed was offered things like, quote, treatments for heavy metal toxicity, fatigue, and preventive measures for atherosclerosis. Dr. Lobe told him to take vitamins every day and an aspirin and willow bark capsules to prevent cardiovascular events. He prescribed lithium salts for his depression to, quote, keep him stable, end of quote. Lobe reminisces in the article about how he and Ed would sing duets while Lobe played the guitar when he visited the office, writing, quote, I will forever remember his heartfelt rendition of Elvis' song in the ghetto that he sang with passion and exuberance. In other words, Lobe offered the typical holistic pharmacist treatment for Ed's conditions, not addressing the causes of any of them. Instead of prescribing a low-fat, plant-based diet in order to prevent heart attacks and reverse type 2 diabetes, he offered willow bark and treatments for heavy metal toxicity. He assumed that Ed's depression was due to a biological condition and treated him with substances like lithium. He did not refer Ed to exercise, physical therapy, and yoga for his growing list of chronic aches and pains, or to a psychologist trained in cognitive therapy to help with the psychological challenges. In typical holistic alternative naturopathic fashion, Lobe tried to help a severely psychologically depressed and disturbed person with singing. I guess there's nothing like playing the guitar to heal a life that involves guns and bear spray and posing as a cop. All of this represents a level of incompetence that is almost difficult to comprehend. And it is typical, unfortunately, in all branches of medicine, perhaps even more so in the alternative trades. Lobe reports that in his letter, Ed stated that he took prescription medications for his conditions, but apparently this was not helping. No kidding. According to Lobe, Ed did not seem manic or depressed in spite of the fact that he said in his letter that he had been diagnosed with bipolar disease. In fact, Lobe asserts, he actually wrote this in his article, that Ed simply suffered from getting older and his body was breaking down. He then writes, and this is a quote, I'm glad he made his own decisions and had the ability to access the medical system in a logical and dignified manner. I'm happy that Ed had the option of seeking assisted euthanasia. Now, it's hard to know how to start in responding to this horrific situation. Actually, Ed signed up for medically assisted decline and suicide when he entered the Canadian healthcare system, and he signed up for the worst version of it when he decided to contact a naturopath instead of a real doctor. He got worse and developed more conditions, symptoms, and diseases over time, which happens to almost everyone in the medical mill, until he reached a point where he couldn't take it anymore. The medical profession's answer to its own incompetence? Medically assisted suicide. What a great way to clean up your mess. Just kill your victims. If I sound angry, I am. Medically assisted suicide can potentially benefit people who are close to death, or people who have fatal conditions that cause immeasurable discomfort and pain, such as those with metastasized cancer. It should never be used for someone who has conditions that are treatable, and putting the type of authority that allows for this in the hands of people, medical doctors, most of whom have shown that they do not know how to help people in meaningful ways, and is an extremely dangerous situation. Ed was one Cleveland Clinic visit away from meaningful help that might have saved his life. Had he gone there and taken Dr. Esselstyn's one-day program, he would have adopted a diet that would have gotten rid of his degenerative conditions. His diabetes and heart disease, at least the progression would have been stopped. He might have even reversed them. Through Esselstyn and knowing a little bit about this, he might have made his way here, where he would find out about physical therapy programs that are very effective, offered by our business partner, Eileen Kopsaftis, and psychological therapy that's very effective, offered by marvelous clinicians like William Lessler and Dr. Peter Bregan. Instead, the Canadian system, aided by an incompetent naturopath, killed Ed slowly and then at the end finished him off quickly. Now, until we figure out how to make sure that things like this don't happen again, I think we should withdraw the medically assisted suicide laws from the books and re-look at this issue. As I mentioned early in this talk, I am not opposed to medically assisted suicide in its entirety. I am horrified at what happened here. And I have a suspicion that this is going on more than we know about in the places where it is legal. So we need to rein this in. And sometimes the medicine becomes the theater of the absurd. And maybe it takes something this absurd for the entire profession to start looking at itself and saying, what are we doing? We are so ineffective. I'm not counting me, Wellness Forum, my colleagues, because we do things quite differently. But the profession is so ineffective that its treatment drives people to want them to kill themselves. And they are more than willing to accommodate these people after they do this. It's definitely time for a change. On that note, I hate to end the week on that note, but I don't really think there's anything I could say after this that I could deliver in an effective manner, so I will just say that's all for today and all for the week. Pass this on to people who you'd like to see horrified like you are, and maybe that will put some pressure on the system for change. I'll be back to you next Tuesday with more news.